Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode, our 10th episode of Talking to Introverts. You are all very, very welcome. We love any feedback, any comments. We've had quite a few to our last podcast, which was about small talk and introverts. And some introverts saying how they've got over their aversion to small talk and that they do small talk now. So I thought that was an interesting one. So I'm here today. I'm Denise Oliver, and my co-host is Sami Blackford. Hello.
Hello.
Today, what we thought we'd chat about is introverts and hobbies. And obviously we're coming to you and talking about this from our point of view. And if you have a different one or a similar one, even, we'd love your feedback, your comments, and any requests you have for any conversations that you might like us to have going forward. Sami, what hobbies, interests do you have?
Well, we were having a conversation, weren't we, before we pressed record, about plants and gardening and all of that kind of stuff. And I think for me, that's a big one. And I think that I kind of have spring, summer hobbies and then autumn, winter hobbies, depending on whether you can be outside more or inside more. So at the moment, spring, summer, gardening is a big one for me. I love being at my allotment. I love being in my garden. You obviously can't see now, but the room that I'm in as we're having this conversation, there is all sorts of plants all over the place. So yeah, that's a big one for me.
What do you like about it?
I like the calmness that plants bring. And I think that's why I have so many in the house, because they bring that peace and that stillness to a room. And I think being on the allotment, it's that same energy, like multiplied by goodness knows how many, because you have the plants that you're tending like right in front of you, and also you have all the rest of nature going on around you. So my allotment is in a farm field that the farmer has let over to be a site for allotments. So it's an organic farm, so we've got all of that greenery around us, and it's on a south-facing slope, so it's always, well, not always, but vast majority of the time, lovely weather, great views. In the winter, whenever we've had a lot of rain, and I mean like a week's worth of rain, from the bottom of the hill that we're on, just as far as you can see, it's just water. It just gets so waterlogged, which again brings another kind of energy to it, because where we are, there's like woodlands to one side of us, so there's always birds chirping and different noises going on. And then when that water's there, there's just such a stillness. I don't think I can really describe it, but the change in the atmosphere is quite something.
I understand that about the water. Where I live, which my garden backs onto the meadows, there are times when the River Dee floods. The meadows is a floodplain, and suddenly we go from having this amazing greenery to having this massive lake, and the whole atmosphere changes. You got all of these seabirds suddenly appear on this lake. It's full of gulls. Where do they come from? How do they know it's there? It always fascinates me. And I think because it's a flood and it's not tidal, once it goes down, everything's the same as it was. Nothing's been swept away. The water's just covered everything, and then it just disappears. Never ceases to fascinate me. And it's happening more and more that we have this flooding. We rarely had it when we first came here. We've been here over 20 years now. And it was one of those, it got talked about. And then the first time I saw it, I remember looking out my back bedroom window going, wow, what is that? And it never used to come up to the garden. Now the lower bit of the garden floods as well. So, climate change is showing up all over the place, wherever we are. It's beautiful though. I love the stillness that the water brings. And like you say, all the birds that you can hear as well. It's magic. It really is magical. What
and I
else do
think,
you do? Oh, go on.
I was going to say, I think another reason that just came into my head about liking gardening and plants, and kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the last episode with small talk, where you were saying, like, when you take Jessie dog for a walk, you'll do small talk with her. Like, I do it with the plants.
Yeah.
Like, I talk to them.
To your plants. Good
I
Lord.
talk to them all the time. And I think as well, on the allotment site, there's not that many of the plots that are actually in use. Like during COVID, during lockdowns, like the whole place was buzzing. Like everybody thought it was the best idea to have an allotment. And then, of course, once, normal life, in inverted commas, opened up again, people didn't have the time for the allotments and they all kind of drifted off again. So you very rarely see anybody when I'm at the allotment. And if you do, it's just kind of like a wave as, they pass by to get to their plot sort of thing. It's quite funny. A few weeks ago, I was on my plot and somebody like came on my plot to talk to me. I was like, oh, I don't know about this. this is different. I don't know. No. But when it's like you have that, you're in a certain headspace when you're there. I mean, it's the same working in the garden, and then somebody comes through the gate like, oh, no, I wasn't prepared for people.
Oh, no, I don't do people when I'm gardening. I really don't. I'm in a zone and I'm there with the plants. And if you're not into talking to plants, you might find my conversations a bit strange. I ask the plants, which bit of them shall I cut off today? Which bit of you is staying? Which bit of you is, just show me all the bits. It's a bit like I always talk to them like they're having their nails done or they're having their hair cut. Which bit shall I cut off to make the rest of you stronger? And somehow I just know. And it's like I'm in no way a professional gardener, could barely tell you the names of anything I've got planted. I just love them. And that's how I work in the garden. I just love what's planted. And we're very lucky in our garden. We've got a lot of trees. They're just stunning because you get so much more variety of wildlife with trees and plants, and got lots of flowers. I don't grow veg. I'm not a veg grower, but I do love plants, and I do love to see the bees, and I can be there amongst the plants. Like I was cutting the lavender back a couple of days ago, and the bees were all over it, but not interested in me at all. And so long as they had something that they could work on, they were fine with me being there. There was just nothing to worry about whatsoever. And I love that communing with greater nature, because we are part of nature, but communing with other bits of it, just love it so much. I really do. Yeah, you mentioned Jessie dog. I mean, that's funny. Talk about communing with nature when you're out with her. Blooming heck, she finds every rabbit, every small creature that there is. She finds them. She's not communing. She's hunting. That's a very different attitude to have. Like, oh, I don't know what I'd do if I found that she'd caught something. I did once find her with a frog hanging out of her mouth, little leg sticking out the side of her mouth. She was like looking at me like, I've got this thing in my mouth. I don't know what to do with it. They prized it away. It was alive. She hadn't done anything to it. It was just in her mouth. She had no idea what it was. Like, I don't think she liked the taste of what was on the
It was like, I'm regretting the choice I've made now, and I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, so we managed. I mean, she was annoyed it was gone, but at the same time, she wasn't really bothered. She's a funny little sausage. What else? What other hobbies, as the quietly introverted people that we are? What about you, Sam?
So coming into darker evenings, longer evenings now, my jigsaws will be coming out again. I love a good jigsaw on a winter evening, which I always thought it's like, oh no, you have to keep that stuff to yourself. That's like really sad and old lady-ish. But I really love a jigsaw. And I think it's like, it kind of goes, it's the way my mind works. I love solving problems. I love solving puzzles. And like in any realm of life, which is why I like doing the work that I do, like finding the missing piece to somebody's business and putting all the pieces together to create their brand and all of that kind of stuff. It's the same in my head. So I do like a good jigsaw. And then the other thing that I really enjoy is sewing. So that's something that I tend to do during winter more as well. Although I have been doing it recently. I've been darning a jumper recently, which needed a lot of attention, which is now more darning than original jumper, I think.
It's a work of art.
Adds really to its character.
No, it's a work of art. I love it. You're very much into that reuse and recycle, aren't you?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, and I think like going back to what you're saying about like the climate change, like I was kind of that way minded anyway, but now it's just like, well, let's look at how we can be more sustainable. And like the clothing industry is one of the worst culprits in the world for not being sustainable. So if I can help in some little way, then instead of putting something in landfill and buying something new, then if I can extend the life of a garment, then why wouldn't I?
No, I agree with you. There are certain things in my wardrobe I have had forever. I've got a pair of shoes in my wardrobe. I love them to pieces. Don't wear them anymore. They're not, my feet have changed over time, so they're not as comfortable, but I just love these shoes. Bought them in Venice in 1984. I still have them.
Gosh, they're nearly as old as I am.
That's so sad. On my part. No, they're gorgeous tan leather, and they were really comfortable because they had that what's it called, that bit of your foot, that arch raise on the inside.
Oh yeah.
So they just so comfy. They were. But my feet have spread over time. I now have to have, my feet have to have a lot of room now. Can't bear to feel them enclosed too much. I have to be able to spread my toes. I can make a lot of space between my toes, just like I can with my fingers. And I need to be able to do that in my shoes. That's why I like flip-flops. Because I can spread my toes so easily. Anywho.
So, right, we've heard all about my hobbies. What are your hobbies?
Very similar to yours, actually. And I wonder with other introverts if a lot of our hobbies are the more singular, solitary style. We like to go out and do stuff on our own. So for me, gardening, been gardening a lot recently. I like to sort my garden out coming towards the end of summer and into autumn, and like bed it down and make sure everything's happy and safe. And also looking at what I'm going to plant next year or plant ready for next year. So that's a big thing for me. But we talked about gardening. You mentioned sewing. I love to craft. I now have, it's been years in the making, I have a little craft corner in the corner of the dining room. Oh my word. Oh, it's my little pleasure zone. It's gorgeous. And I've brought together all the unfinished things I've had for years. I've got packets of cross stitch and tapestries and cushions and so many things. Knitting that started and not finished. It's all in one space now. And I've actually, since I've done that, one of the things I invested in was a craft light. So I've got this amazing light that fits over the desk and really helps me to see where I'm going with stitching, especially whether it's a textile or whether it's knitting, the wool is dark. Sometimes you miss stitches when it's very dark. And I've just completed, I have had this, easily 10 years, a Cafe Facet tapestry called Cherries. Oh, it's gorgeous, but the colours were so dark. But now with the craft light, it is completed. I can't believe I've done it. I've actually got it on the dining room table, stretching as we speak. And then I've got this idea for making it into a bigger cushion with some patchwork around the edge of it. And then I don't know what I'm going to do on the back of it yet. but it's not a cushion you can sit on. You've got to look at it because it's a work of art.
You can just admire it.
Totally. It's going to be on the back of the sofa, not under your head or your bum or anything like that. But I do, and it's very much, I think you're similar. You like different things at different times of the year. I don't particularly knit in the summer because it's too warm. Well, it's not always too warm in this country, but often it's like I find knitting is a very warming thing to do. And so to knit in the summer isn't what I want. I don't want to be covered in woolly blankets. So I like to knit in the winter, the autumn and the winter.
Yeah, there's some, isn't there? There's some crafts or hobbies or whatever that call to be done sat by a log fire.
Yeah, totally. No, absolutely. And I'm not into very intricate knitting. I've got on the go a patchwork knitted blanket, and I've had it on the go for ages. And I can't remember the name of the lady who designed it, Debbie somebody, her name's gone. But it's intricate. It's got lots of beading in it. And I always say to my husband that I never want to learn to play golf. It's just like whacking a ball across the field just spoils a good walk. I'd rather just go for a good walk. I feel that with beads and knitting, it just spoils a good row of knitting. You've got to keep putting these beads on thread and knitting it in. I'm like, oh no. But I will get it finished. I'm not even halfway through it, but I've decided that alongside another cross-stitch sampler that I unearthed. God knows how long I've had that either. That those are my two winter projects, autumn winter projects. I want to get them both done this year. So I'll alternate between the two, knit a patch, do some cross-stitch and things like that. Now I've got my little nook. No one touches it. It's all my stuff. And I'm actually looking forward to emptying it because it's just full of stuff I've started and never completed. So that will be a very, very nice thing to do.
I've got a sock knitting kit. Like knitting is not my strength. I will say I can do a line of knitting, a row of knitting. That's about it.
Yeah.
So I was given this sock knitting kit as a present some years ago now, and it's kind of one of those. Is like, this scares me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave that over there. But actually, I found, because I don't know how to read a knitting instruction pattern thing. I don't know what it's telling me. It's just like Egyptian hieroglyphs to me, like not a clue.
Yeah.
But then I was like, you know who'll know? YouTube will know. So I went on YouTube and found a very simple looking tutorial of how to knit socks. I was like, oh, that looks like I could do that. So that is one of my jobs. It's not the right word. Projects for this winter. I will be knitting a pair of socks.
I have to say, on the subject of knitting, it has changed over the years. I have bought some patterns off Ravelry thinking, oh, I've got a ball of wool, I'll make a hat. Oh, I can knit these mittens. Oh, don't understand the language. I've had to go on YouTube and it's like I'm teaching myself to knit all over again. Like, what are they talking about? And it's just proven quite frustrating because you bought me a ball of wool. I found this beautiful pattern for this gorgeous hat. No idea what this woman's talking about. Not a clue. Just don't understand it. I couldn't even tell you what she's talking about. I was like, oh, what happened to just knit one purl one? What happened to that? I can do that. But this weird, and partly it's knitting in the round. There's this whole language about knitting in the round. And then there's this different way of casting on, a way I've never done before, that's looser. So it stops the edge of the hat being tight so that it's easier to fold fold the edge up so you get that nicely doubled edging of your beanie hat. And I'm like, okay, that's going to need some time. I'll finish off other projects first before I start any of those. So that won't happen for a while. That lovely gorgeous ball of wool you bought me is going to sit for a while. It's there. It's in a box. It's in the same shelves as everything I've started and never finished. In fact, I came across a God, blimey, I feel so embarrassed. I came across a cross stitch that my mother-in-law gave me easily 25 years ago that I attempted and was like ready to rip it to shreds because it was so frustrating. It's like the instructions and the picture of what it is don't go together. Will it ever get done? I don't know. It might be in the fire this year. I don't know. I haven't made my mind up yet. I'm sure she must have forgotten about it just like I did, because it got packed away in a box and that box got opened this year. And I'm like, oh, don't remember that. It's beautiful. It's like one big daisy on a long stem on this gorgeous, like linen coloured piece of fabric. But the hole count and the pattern don't match. So I'm trying to make cross stitches look even and they're not coming out even. Like, that's not helping me at all. And my brain's just like doing a bit of a whirling dervish and not happy. But you never know. There might come a moment where something happens to my brain cells and suddenly my neuroplasticity is happy to have a go again. I don't know. Let's see. I think one of my favourite pastimes, I mean, you know how much I love books, but I love cookbooks. I've got so many. And I just love going through them and looking at the different recipes and combinations of foods. And, some people have just such great ways with flavours. Otto Lengi. His books are just the most beautiful cookbooks ever. I've got about 4 of his. And I just marvel at that inventiveness and combination of flavors. I just love it, and my mouth waters thinking about them. And then obviously one of my favorite things, and one of yours too, is cacao. So I see that as one of those pleasures in life that I can do on my own, just be myself, and I just being with a wonderful cup of ceremonial grade cacao and enjoying the whole putting the tray together and just being with this plant-based wonderful food. And really, really enjoying putting it together and just spending time. It's almost like a mini meditation when I'm with it, even before I've started drinking it. Just love that.
Just to interject there, if you would like to learn more about cacao and why we love it so much, we did do a whole episode on it. I cannot remember what number episode it was, but if you go to our
3, I think it was one of our earliest ones.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But if you go to our channel, Talking to Introverts, it'll be in the list there somewhere. Going back to what you were saying about the different flavors and stuff like that, is something that just blows my mind. How people know that certain flavors will go, like, they don't, in my head, they don't look like they'd work together. They don't, but somehow you do it and you taste it. It's like, oh my goodness. And actually, I was away this weekend and stopped at a little cafe in Harlech on the coast for lunch, and had avocado on sourdough toast. Sounds normal enough. And obviously the avocado had like the chili in it and all of that kind of stuff, which I love. And then also it had pomegranate seeds sprinkled over it, and a drizzle of honey and a strawberry on the side. I was like, not sure about this, but actually, like with the chili and then the texture of the avocado and then the sweetness of like the honey and the strawberry and the pomegranate seeds, it's just like, oh my God, that's like the best avocado on toast I've ever had.
Yeah. I think going back to cacao as well, Hotel Chocolat have a restaurant in London in Borough Market called Rabat, which is the name of that Rabot, maybe, which is the name of their plantation out wherever it is, the other side of the world. And it's that adding cacao in its 100% form and cacao nibs to savoury food. We think of chocolate as sweet, don't we? But actually, before you add anything to it, it's bitter. And so it works great on so many dishes. Every table in the restaurant's got what looks like a pepper grinder, and it's full of cacao nibs. So you put cacao nibs on your food. Oh, it's so yummy when you do that. I have somewhere a recipe. See, you've got me talking about food now. I love this subject. for a butternut squash stew, I'm going to call it. The butternut squash is grated and it's quite a sweet thing. It's tomatoes and there's onion and everything in it, but you add cacao to the mixture like you're making a gravy. No one knows when I make it that it's cacao. But gosh, it adds such a unctuousness to the whole dish. It's just has this sense of being way richer than it is if it's like a curry or if it's a stew. Oh my word, it's absolutely amazing. I'm not very good at flavors overall. I couldn't be a chef, for instance. I don't have that subtleness to my flavor palette, but there are times when I make something and I think, oh, thank goodness this person put this together. This is just amazing. It's fabulous. And that's what I love about cookbooks. Every time I see a new one and I think, shall I get that? I've got something similar. And someone's come up with some brilliant ideas. Like, gosh, I can't remember her name. The woman who's done all the roasting tin cookbooks. My favourite still is the green roasting tin. And just to put all your veggies in one pan that goes in the oven with all sorts of things. Genius, absolutely genius. It transformed the way I cooked doing that. Love it. And then when years and years ago now, when I bought my first Madhur Jaffrey Indian cookbook, I've still got that book. Best one ever. Just that changed my life as well. It's like, oh, what is this? Where do I get this from? But of course, having done my nurse training at Manchester Royal, we had the curry mile just literally down the road. And I knew I could go there and buy stuff that we weren't used to seeing in supermarkets even.
Yeah.
Big containers of dates and the pomegranates and all. Oh, my word. I'm salivating.
I was just thinking as you were talking about like the Indian cookbook and stuff, thinking about like in like traditional British cooking doesn't have that like flavor. I'm going to use the word concoction, does it? It's like the traditional British food is very. The word basic is there. It's like I don't want to insult British cooking with the word basic, but it is, isn't it? It's like those, like meat and potatoes and like those sorts of things.
But we didn't have the spices, did we?
No,
we can't grow those spices here.
But then we have herbs. But I was going to say we have a variety of herbs available to us and all of that kind of stuff.
Lamb and mint sauce. That's about as far as I went in my house, and no one touched the mint sauce. And I gave up red meat a long time ago. Yeah, just trying to think like fish and chips. It's just salt and vinegar, isn't it? And we don't see that as a flavouring in itself. We don't see that as being something that perhaps enhances the food. We just see it as, well, that's the way it's always been done. So we just carry on with that. Yeah, I mean, veg, fish and chips.
I think now, like, people are getting more inventive, aren't they? With like, like gastropubs and stuff will have a fish and chips with a twist type thing. But I think it's taken a lot of influence from other countries to kind of bring that experimentation in. That's my view of things anyway.
I agree with you. When I look back at my Delia cookbooks, the old ones, there's very little of spices or anything. There was something that she used in a recipe once and it nearly broke Sainsbury's. I can't think what it was now. It was something that wasn't the usual, and she put it in a recipe. Let's say it's something like lemongrass. I don't think it was lemongrass. And suddenly Sainsbury's were inundated because of this one particular recipe, and they couldn't keep up with demand. There were a lot of people who missed out.
Delia. The power of Delia.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine not having all the ingredients to do a really good curry anymore. That's normal now for me. What shall I make today? Ooh, what veg have I got? Oh, I'll make a curry. What's coming out of the kitchen tonight? Oh, look, another curry. And I just wonder if like people in India are a bit like you with the basics, think how basic their food is.
Yeah.
And absolutely love it because it's so different over here. It's so much tastier. Oh gosh, I love a good curry. Mouth watering even more, people. Even more. So if you want to let us know what your favourite hobbies are, introvert or extrovert, I'm just thinking actually before we finish, there's a beautiful young woman we know, Jess, and she likes to go paddle boarding, doesn't she? Still a solitary thing for an introvert to do. Won't catch me on one. But there you go. I'll stick to my knitting, my gardening, and all sorts of other. I'm trying to think what else I do. I like jigsaws as well. Very much so. Yeah, it's good. I mean, as we're sat here recording this, there's a young woman, I've seen her go past 3 times now. She's running with her buggy. She's got a kid in a buggy. She's going around the block running. I'm like, I've never done that either.
No. Used to see, when I lived in London, used to see them in Greenwich Park a lot.
Yeah.
Doing the buggy run.
Oh, I can imagine. Greenwich Park is beautiful. Oh, something else I haven't done much of recently, and that's National Trust properties. I am a bit of a lover of a historical building. I do like to visit beautifully designed and proportioned buildings and imagine what life must have been like with your big frock on. They have to be big proportions, don't they? Because they wore big frocks. Yeah, things like that. I do love a good, or any historical type building. I do love to visit an old building. National History Museum. Oh, forget the contents. The building is just stunning. Absolutely stunning building. Who had that in their head to, think, oh, I want a building to look like this, draw it out, and then actually create it? I mean, to me, that blows my mind because that's not how my mind works.
Yeah. Whenever I see like buildings like that, I just, it's like, oh, architecture isn't what it was anymore. When you get like, you can see like stonemasons have spent years and years like carving certain aspects and stuff, and like the window proportions and like the woodwork and inside and all of that kind of stuff. And like, oh, yeah, those are the days.
Just thinking, churches came into my mind. I mean, we have some stunning churches, and I love the calmness of a church. When we went to Russia and we went to St. Petersburg and Moscow, and you see those amazing churches that they've got, oh my word, they blow my mind. I can't remember what they call those domes that they have. They have a name for them on the top. And some of that, I mean, in the villages and the towns, not in the main cities of around Moscow and St. Petersburg, they all have the same dome shape, but that's to do with the snow. It's so that the snow falls off the domes better. And it's to do with it sliding off because they get a lot more than we get. And they have drain pipes that are like 10 times wider than ours to cope with the drainage of that. But who thought to make them all the colours of the rainbow and gild them? And oh God, they are stunning, absolutely stunning. I mean, obviously, there's a lot going on with Russia and Ukraine at the minute, and I wouldn't go to Russia just because I'm not a political animal, but I just can't condone what's going on over there. But should things ever change, I would say one of my all-time favourite cities to visit for the amazing buildings, the beautiful architecture, St. Petersburg. No expense was spared when that city was built. No expense. Oof, honestly. Yes, I know they had paupers in the street and all of that while the kings, the czars did their thing. But they did it good. They really did. Very impressed. Very, very impressed. But I do like a nice bit of architecture. I really do.
I think again, it's that kind of like that invitation to contemplation, isn't it? It's like you don't have to talk about it. You can just stand there and admire it.
Oh, 100%. just, well, it's just that whole jaw-dropping, how? How did someone, and I do it in the opposite way as well when I don't like the look, how did someone think that was a good idea? When you see a concrete block, like, who thought that was a good, I'm trying to think of something that might have done that to me recently, and nothing's coming to mind. Oh no, something very much has just come to mind. The city centre of Manchester, please stop building glass towers. It's horrible. They look awful. Can't stand it. I hate it. I hate what they've done to the Manchester skyline. Oof. There you go. I'll say no more. Who thought that was a good idea? Nope. Can't bear it. Can't bear it.
But if anybody from the Manchester Planning Department does happen to be listening, please take note.
I think there's several things about Manchester that are great. The tram system, absolutely genius to unearth that and get that going again. It's really added something to the city centre. But please stop building more of these glass things. There was a point off Deansgate, which bit of it is it? I can't remember what it's called, where they tore down a concrete building, put a frigging glass one in its place. How is that any better? How does that work? It's like right by the Opera House as well. Like, you have all these beautiful buildings in Manchester and you put those monstrosities up instead. Now, you know me, I don't get overheated about anything, but this.
Actually, that is something that really annoys me, like when a building is just not sympathetic to its surroundings.
No.
So the village I live in, because we're pretty much surrounded by countryside on all sides, down one end of the village is just down, it's kind of like the outskirts of the village, and beyond that is like woodland and fields and there's little old stone cottages, all like, nice little villagey house, buildings. And then there's this huge, like, the current trend for like really white plaster and grey windows and all that kind of huge one of those. Honestly, it could easily house 10 people.
Yeah.
And it's like a couple have built it.
Yeah,
it's like it's going to house 2 people.
They're horrible. I hate them. Who thought that was a good idea? Who? Stop it. Who? Whoever you are, please stop. It's horrible. We've now got one next door, but one to us. Completely out of character with every other house in the area. It's just like, what? Who thought that was a good idea? You have these grey front doors with the frosted glass and that great big long metal door opener handle, and it's just like, no. I'd pull that down.
No, thank you. Stop it.
No.
Stop it now.
Is pretty, but I wouldn't do that to it. Nope. No.
Oh, look, we've gone off on a tangent again.
I don't know, how did we get onto architecture from hobbies? I think there's a whole thing on architecture that we could do, actually, because you and I follow lots of things on Instagram, don't we?
Yes.
To do with old houses of America and old houses of Italy and old houses of Norway. And then there's tiny houses. Now they're genius. Genius. Anyway.
I was going to say, kind of following on and also sort of related to hobbies, went camping at the weekend, and the number of people who are in like their little tiny house vans now, and there was where we were right on the cliff top, on the site that we were on, and then just kind of in the same field but kind of a little bit up the hill from us, behind us, there was a guy in I think it was like a long wheelbase, quite a big van, who obviously had it all set up in there quite professionally and all that. And then these 2 women came in separate vans, but they were obviously traveling together, slightly smaller vans than this guy's and parked kind of just up from him. So they were having like the whole conversation of like, well, I've got this thing in my van, but like, oh no, I chose the such and such in my van. And it's just like this whole conversation that I was earwigging on, let's be honest. But it was
well, that's one of the things introverts do. We listen, don't we?
We do.
Listen.
But it was interesting to hear like all of the thought that had gone into like the designs of the vans and stuff. So I hope it's like they use them regularly. It's not just like for, a couple of weeks in the summer sort of thing. But going back to hobbies, saying like I was camping and stuff, one thing that I am not is not a hobby of mine is traveling, as in abroad. And I was having this conversation with Rich, my partner, while we were away camping, and it's like, yeah, no, like I'll go away for a weekend. It's nice to go and see somewhere. Whether that's camping or Airbnb, whether it's in this country or abroad or whatever. But actually traveling the world, I'm like, no, I don't need that. That's not on my bucket list.
No, mine neither. I don't know if that's an introvert thing. I bet there's lots of introverts who like to travel.
But I remember
things.
At the beginning of the year, we booked to go to Croatia for a week. And I think we booked it kind of February. So it's like, when you've had a long winter and you're like, I just want some sunshine. So you get quite excited about booking to go somewhere hot and sunny. So I was really up for it when we were booking it. And then as it drew near, I was like, oh, this holiday's just in the way now. I've got stuff I need to do. The allotment's just kind of like picking up. And I'm like, oh, I just want to go and then come back and just get back to life. And so much for booking somewhere hot and sunny. It rained most of the week. So there we are. But
I know.
Learned me my lesson.
I know. But, I know I'm not one for travelling much or going far. But, got 2 weeks in St. Ives coming up. In fact, when this podcast goes out, I will be there. Oh, if there's a place that I absolutely just so look forward to being in, is St. Ives. I just wish I could time warp myself there so that I didn't have however long it's going to take to drive all the way to the bottom of the country. But it's so worth it once we're there. You just drop everything and just wander around St. Ives and sit on the beach. And I love it there. One of my favourites.
I think there's something very different, isn't there, about holidaying in this country to going abroad. See, I find going abroad much more stressful. I think it's like obviously, I'm going to guess it's the airport stuff. The actual.
It's on a plane with all those people. Can you just stop getting on planes, please?
Yeah, it's like the actual traveling bit. Once I get there and I can like settle a bit, like I'm okay. But then I'm like, oh, God, do it in reverse now to get home again. But I don't have the same here. Because like driving down to Cornwall for a couple of weeks, like I'd like that drive. I enjoy that drive.
I know my hairdresser asked me last time I saw her, she's like, so you had a great holiday in Crete. I had a marvellous holiday in Crete. It was great. And you've got your holiday in St. Ives coming up. I was like, yeah. She's like, right, if you could only have one holiday for the rest of your life, where would it be? Greece? Where would it be? I just looked at her like she'd grown another head. I'm like, St. Ives. Oh, not nowhere else in the world. No. And she's just looking at me like, is it really that good? It is for me. It works for me. Well, I'm not saying it's the place to go. It's my place to go. I like it. I've got a lot of friends who travel all over the world all of the time. They're hardly ever at home. I don't know why they don't just, have a motor van and just motor home it around the world.
I was going to say, sell their house. Yeah.
I don't know why. But I think we all do need a base of some sort, don't we? Where we hide our hobbies. Just a reminder of what we're supposed to be talking about. Hobbies. I think I've exhausted mine. I don't think I've got anything else. I don't stamp collect or go plane spotting or anything like that. Any more? Have you got anything else that you do?
No, I can't think of anything.
You're very creative. You do draw, don't you? And paint. You do that as well. You probably don't even think about it because it's so much a part of you.
Yeah. I've always been like the creative one, the artistic one. even since I was little. So that's just stuff that kind of comes naturally. And I think all of the, like all through school and all the, well, most of the jobs I've had and stuff like that have been involved in some sort of creative modality. So it's just always something that has been there. So although it is kind of a hobby, it's just something I do.
Yeah, I know. It's often though, isn't it, what we take for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Are we done?
I think we're done. I do think we're done.
I think we
Before
are.
we go off on any other tangents, I think we should say we're done now.
We're done.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being with us. And we will come back to you in a couple of weeks. I can't even think what we might be talking about. I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Enjoy the rest of the good weather and until it's fully winter. Getting darker every day. Oh my word. Anyway, love having you with us. Any comments, any feedback, any requests, please let us know. And we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.